His voice filled the television studio like he owned every word. It was truly a collaborative process, but I personally architected the core strategy. I stood backstage clutching my intern badge, so hard the plastic edges cut into my palm. The CEO of Outsmarted, Preston Blackwell, sat under bright studio lights explaining my campaign to 3 million viewers. Word for word, slide for slide, color scheme for color scheme. I named it Phoenix. Spent 4 unpaid weekends scrubbing user data until my eyes burned. Built projections that predicted a $2.3 million revenue spike. Created the tagline that now appeared behind his perfectly styled gray hair on the monitor. The host leaned forward, impressed. That's brilliant strategic thinking, Preston. My stomach twisted. The clipboard in my hands trembled. I wasn't listed anywhere. Not in the credits. Not in the acknowledgments. Not even as a footnote in the press materials stacked on the production table beside me. They'd laughed at my ideas in meetings, dismissed me with patronizing smiles, called me eager but inexperienced. And now Preston Blackwell sat on national television in his $6,000 suit, pretending I didn't exist. My chest burned with something that felt like rage and humiliation mixed together. But I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched, and started planning. My name is Sable Reeves, and I'm 23 years old. 3 months ago, I was hired as a summer intern at Outsmarted's Innovation Division. They told me I was lucky, that they don't usually take people without Ivy League backgrounds, that this was my chance to prove myself. I believed them, showed up at 7:30 every morning, stayed until everyone else left, said yes to every task, no matter how small, learned everyone's coffee order, memorized meeting schedules, made myself useful in the way interns are supposed to be useful, invisible until needed, grateful for scraps of attention. I came from a state school in Ohio, graduated with honors but no connections, no family money, no network of powerful people who could make calls on my behalf, just student loans and determination and the naive belief that hard work would be enough. The innovation team had 6 people. Preston, the CEO, who showed up for big presentations, 2 senior strategists who'd been there since the company launched, 3 mid-level managers who did most of the actual work, and me, the intern they took a chance on, the one who should be thankful just to be in the room. What they didn't know was that I was paying attention to everything. Every dismissive comment, every stolen idea, every time they forgot I was listening. I have a good memory, better than good, and I was about to use it. The first time I realized something was wrong happened during a meeting I wasn't invited to. I was at my desk outside the conference room, working on data analysis they'd assigned me that morning. The glass walls weren't soundproof. I could hear everything. Preston's voice carried clearly. Let the intern keep playing with her color schemes. Makes her feel like she's contributing. Laughter rippled around the table. My fingers froze on the keyboard. I'd spent 18 hours on those visualizations. Built a framework that showed user engagement patterns they'd been trying to identify for months. Color-coded data sets to make complex information instantly readable. It wasn't playing. It was the foundation of what would become the Phoenix campaign. But to them, I was just the eager intern who needed to feel useful. I stared at my screen, heat crawling up my neck. The conference room door opened. People filed out, still chuckling about something. Nobody looked at me. Nobody noticed the way my hands shook slightly as I returned to typing. Because in their eyes, I was furniture. Useful when needed. Invisible otherwise. That afternoon, I started a new folder on my personal laptop. Named it Evidence. Began backing up every file, every email, every Slack message that showed my work. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it. Just knew I needed proof of what I was building while they weren't paying attention. I pitched Phoenix 3 weeks into my internship. The meeting was casual. Preston called it a brainstorming session. Asked everyone to bring fresh ideas. I'd prepared for days. Built a complete presentation. Market analysis. User personas. Revenue projections. A phased rollout strategy that targeted 3 demographic segments we were underperforming in. I stood at the front of the room, hands steady despite my racing heart, and explained the entire concept. 15 minutes of carefully researched strategy. When I finished, silence stretched across the conference table. Then Gerald, one of the senior strategists, smiled. That's cute. Someone else nodded. Ambitious thinking. Preston checked his phone. Thanks for the input, Sable. We'll take it under consideration. That was it. No questions. No discussion. Just polite dismissal disguised as encouragement. I sat back down, face burning, while they moved on to other topics. 2 weeks later, I walked past Preston's office, saw a whiteboard covered in familiar diagrams, my demographic targets, my rollout phases, my revenue projections. The title across the top read Project Firebird. Same concept, same strategy, same markets, different name. His handwriting. I stood in the hallway, staring through the glass, feeling something cold settle in my chest. They hadn't just dismissed my idea. They'd waited until I stopped watching, then taken it. Friday evening, 6:47. The office was empty except for me and the cleaning crew. Everyone else had left for happy hour at the bar across the street. I could hear their laughter drifting up from the sidewalk below. I was still at my desk, running the analytics they'd need for Monday's client presentation, cleaning data sets, building visualizations, triple-checking projections. Preston walked past on his way to the elevator, saw me hunched over my laptop, and stopped. You're still here? Sable, you're such a trooper. His voice carried that tone adults use with children. Proud, but not really seeing you. This is the kind of dedication that gets noticed. Keep it up. I looked up, managed to smile. Just want to make sure everything's ready. He nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. See you Monday. The elevator doors closed. I returned to the spreadsheet, fingers moving across the keyboard, eyes burning from screen time. Because I believed him. Believed that working harder would matter. That dedication would translate into recognition. That if I just proved myself valuable enough, they'd see me as more than the intern who fetched coffee. I stayed until 9:30 that night. Sent the completed analysis at 9:43. Got a response Monday morning from Gerald. Thanks. One word. No acknowledgement of the weekend I'd sacrificed. No mention of the quality of work. Just thanks. Like I'd done him a small favor instead of building the foundation of their client pitch. Opened the document on my computer. Read through every line. Then I made one small change. Added a single detail to the market expansion section. A reference to our rollout success in Latin American markets, specifically Colombia and Brazil. It was specific enough to sound authoritative, detailed enough that an interviewer might ask follow-up questions, and completely fabricated. We had no Latin American presence, no rollout in Colombia, no data from Brazil. It was a lie, but a lie only someone intimately familiar with the actual campaign would recognize. A lie that Preston would repeat confidently because he didn't know the difference between my real work and this manufactured detail. A lie that I could correct. On air. In front of everyone. I saved the document. Sent it to Preston the next morning. He responded with a thumbs up emoji. Didn't read it carefully. Didn't question anything. Just trusted that the intern had done what she was told. His mistake. Not mine. I found the producer's name on a guest pass log. River Chen. Production coordinator for the business news segment. I looked her up on LinkedIn. Sent a message. Hi River. I'm an intern at Asper Tech. I worked on the Phoenix campaign that Preston Blackwell will be discussing on your show. I have some information that might be relevant to your segment. She responded within 2 hours. What kind of information? I sent her 3 files. The original Phoenix presentation with my name and timestamp. The Slack conversations where I'd pitched concepts that later appeared in Project Firebird. The email chain showing me sending completed analysis that Preston had presented as his own work. Added a note. I'm not trying to sabotage anything. I just think accuracy matters, especially on television. River called me that afternoon. This is your work. Yes. And he's taking credit for it. Yes. Silence on the line. Then, would you be willing to attend the taping? Off camera. Just in case we need clarification on technical details. My heart hammered. Yes. I'll add you to the guest list. Don't tell anyone at your company. I promised. Hung up. Sat at my desk staring at nothing, adrenaline making my hands shake. This was it. The moment where I either got justice or destroyed my career. Probably both. I didn't care anymore. I was tired of being invisible. The taping was scheduled for Friday afternoon. I told the office I had a doctor's appointment. Left at 2. Took the subway to the studio in Midtown. Security checked my ID against the guest list. Handed me a badge. River met me in the lobby. "You're Sable." I nodded. She studied me. Not unkindly. Just assessing. "This is going to be messy. You understand that?" "Yes." "And you're sure?" "Because once we start, I can't protect you from whatever happens after." I thought about 3 months of being dismissed, of watching my work get stolen, of late nights and unpaid weekends and patronizing smiles. "I'm sure." She led me backstage. The studio was smaller than it looked on television. Bright lights, cameras, a desk where the host sat reviewing notes. Preston arrived 20 minutes later. Walked right past me without recognition. I was just another production assistant in his peripheral vision. Not worth noticing. River positioned me 2 feet off camera. Close enough to hear everything. Close enough to step forward if needed. She leaned close, whispered, "You ready?" I nodded, because I'd been ready for 3 months. Preston took his seat. The host smiled. Cameras started rolling, and I waited for the lie I'd planted to bloom. The interview started smoothly. Preston was comfortable, confident, answered questions about Asper's vision and market position with practiced ease. Then the host shifted topics. "Let's talk about this Phoenix campaign that's generating buzz. Walk us through the strategy." Preston smiled, launched into explanation. My explanation, my strategy framework, my market analysis. He spoke about demographic targeting, revenue projections, phased rollout approach, everything I'd built. Then he reached the section I'd modified. "We're seeing tremendous traction in our Latin American expansion, Brazil and Colombia specifically. The rollout model we developed has been incredibly effective in those markets." The host's eyebrows rose. "That's interesting. I wasn't aware Aspera had international presence yet. Your website only lists U.S. operations." Preston's smile faltered. "Just for a second. Well, it's early stage. Soft launch. We're keeping it quiet until we have enough data." The host glanced at her notes, frowned slightly. "Right. But you mentioned Colombia specifically. Can you give us numbers on that market penetration?" Preston shifted in his chair. "The specific metrics are proprietary." But River moved beside me, handed me a wireless microphone. My hands shook as I clipped it to my collar. The host was still pressing. "It just seems unusual to launch internationally before solidifying domestic presence." Preston's face was starting to show strain. That's when River stepped forward and whispered something to the host. The host looked up, saw me standing in the wings. "I'm told we have someone from the development team here. Would you mind joining us for a moment?" I stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding, hotter than I expected. I could feel 3 cameras tracking my movement. Preston's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, something that looked like panic. I sat in the chair the host indicated, kept my spine straight, hands folded in my lap. "You work on the Phoenix campaign?" the host asked. "Yes, I created it." Silence, the kind that feels heavy. "You created it?" "Yes, I'm a summer intern. I pitched the concept 3 months ago, built the analysis, developed the rollout strategy." I turned to look at Preston. His face had gone pale. "There is no Latin American launch. We only operate in the U.S. market." "I know, because I built every projection in the Phoenix framework." The host leaned forward. "So this campaign that Mr. Blackwell has been describing is mine. The demographic analysis, the revenue projections, the phased rollout model, all my work. I can provide documentation, timestamps, original files." Preston found his voice. "This is a misunderstanding." Sable contributed, certainly, but the strategic vision was in my pitch deck from June 15th. I kept my voice calm. "Even. I have the original file. Your name isn't on it. Mine is." The cameras kept rolling. The host looked between us. Preston's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. and I felt something like justice settle in my chest. Cold. Clean. Final. The rest of the interview lasted 8 minutes. The host asked questions. I answered with specific details. Dates. Data points. Methodology. Preston sat frozen. Tried twice to interject. Both times, I calmly corrected him with documentation I'd memorized. When the cameras finally stopped, the studio fell silent. Preston stood without looking at me. Walked off stage. The host extended her hand. That took courage. I shook it. My hand was steadier than I expected. River appeared at my elbow. The clip will be live in an hour. You should probably prepare yourself. I nodded. Understood what she meant. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. I left through the side exit. Took the subway back to my apartment. Sat on my couch in the dark. Didn't turn on my phone. Just waited for the explosion I knew was coming. It started at 7:30. My phone began vibrating. Text messages, emails, notifications flooding in faster than I could read them. I opened Twitter. The clip was already there. Intern exposes CEO's lies on live television. 2 million views. Someone had isolated the moment Preston's face changed. Made it a meme. When the intern brings receipts. Another angle focused on my calm delivery. This is how you handle a credit thief. LinkedIn was worse. Or better. Depending on perspective. My connection requests jumped from 80 to 4,000. Messages from recruiters, journalists, other tech workers sharing their own stories of stolen work. I turned my phone face down, closed my eyes, and waited for Monday morning. The weekend was chaos. My phone never stopped buzzing. Media requests, interview invitations, podcast hosts wanting to hear the full story. I ignored most of it. Spent Saturday reviewing documentation, making sure every file was backed up, every timestamp verified, every piece of evidence was airtight. Sunday afternoon, I got 2 emails. The first was from Gerald. We need to talk Monday morning. 8 a.m. Don't be late. The second was from an anonymous company address. Someone using a burner account. You weren't wrong. Half the team has seen this happen before. Preston's been taking credit for other people's work for years. We just didn't have proof. Then another message. Same anonymous format. HR is reopening your complaint. The board wants answers. A third. CEO is in full damage control. Lawyer meetings all weekend. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, reading messages from people I'd worked beside for 3 months. People who'd watched me get dismissed. Who'd seen my work get stolen. Who'd said nothing. But we're talking now. Because the truth was public. Because cameras had recorded everything. Because 3 million people had watched Preston Blackwell's face when I corrected his lie. And there was no spinning that. No PR strategy that could erase what happened on live television. Monday morning, I put on the same blazer I'd worn my first day. Navy blue. Professional. Looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked tired, but not defeated. Not scared. I picked up my bag. Headed for the subway. Ready for whatever came next. The office was different Monday morning. People stopped talking when I walked past. Stared at me with expressions I couldn't read. Some looked sympathetic. Others resentful. Nobody spoke. I went to my desk. Set down my bag. Waited. At 7:58, Gerald appeared. Conference room. Now. I followed him. Preston was already there. So was someone from HR I'd never met. A woman in a gray suit with a laptop and legal pad. Sable. The HR woman's voice was carefully neutral. I'm Patricia Voss. I need to ask you some questions about Friday's television appearance. I sat, folded my hands on the table. Okay. Were you authorized to appear on that segment? I was invited by the production team. Added to the guest list. Did you inform anyone at Aspera about your attendance? No. Why not? I looked at Preston. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Because I knew if I asked permission, the answer would be no. And the truth needed to be told. Patricia made notes. You understand this has created significant complications for the company. I understand that Preston Blackwell lied on television about work I created. And I corrected that lie. Gerald leaned forward. You embarrassed us. Made the company look incompetent. I made Preston look dishonest. Because he was dishonest. There's a difference. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. They asked about documentation, about my decision-making process, about whether I understood the damage I'd caused. I answered every question calmly, provided evidence, never raised my voice. When it ended, Patricia closed her laptop. We'll need to conduct a full review. You're suspended pending investigation. I nodded, stood, walked out. Suspended meant I couldn't come to the office, couldn't access company systems, couldn't contact coworkers. But it didn't mean I was alone. The messages kept coming. Anonymous emails from other Aspera employees sharing their experiences, journalists wanting interviews, lawyers asking if I wanted to file formal complaints, and recruiters, so many recruiters, subject lines like, not just an intern, and leadership position available, and your skills deserve recognition. I spent Tuesday organizing everything, built a timeline, cross-referenced dates, made sure every claim I'd made could be verified. Wednesday morning, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a folder of printed emails. Messages between Preston and Gerald discussing how to handle the intern situation 3 months ago. Discussions about keeping me busy with data work. Keeping me out of strategic conversations. Making sure I stayed useful but invisible. A note was paperclipped to the front page. Thought you should have these. Some of us are tired of protecting him. I photographed every page. Uploaded them to my secure backup, added them to the evidence file that was starting to look like a legal case. Thursday afternoon, news broke. Aspera Tech Board calls emergency meeting. CEO Preston Blackwell under ethics review. Company faces internal investigation following viral interview. I watched the coverage from my apartment. Saw Preston's carefully worded statement about misunderstandings and collaborative work environments. Saw the comments section fill with people calling it corporate doublespeak. Saw my name trending again, this time with words like courage, integrity, justice. Friday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the phone was professional, confident. Sable Reeves? This is Helena Grant from Meridian Strategies. We're a brand development firm. Have you seen our work? I pulled up their website while she talked. High-profile clients. Award-winning campaigns, the kind of place that hired people with years of experience, not suspended interns. I've heard of you. We watched your interview. Read your documentation. We're impressed. She paused. We'd like to talk about a position, not an internship, a junior strategist role, full benefits, competitive salary. My hand tightened on the phone. I'm currently under investigation at my current company. We're aware. We've done our research. The investigation isn't about your work quality. It's about embarrassing someone powerful. She laughed. We're not afraid of that. We talked for 20 minutes. She explained the role, the team, the expectations, sent me information packets while we were still on the phone. When the call ended, I sat staring at my laptop. Job offer. Real position. From people who'd seen me expose a CEO on live television and decided that made me valuable, not disposable. That same afternoon, another email arrived. Subject line, board decision. After thorough review, Preston Blackwell has agreed to step down as CEO of Aspera Tech effective immediately. This decision follows internal investigation into attribution of work and company ethics policies. We apologize to all employees whose contributions have not been properly recognized. I read it 3 times, then closed my laptop, walked to the window, looked out at the city, and let myself feel the weight of it. I'd won. Actually won. The news hit every tech publication by evening. Aspera Tech CEO resigns amid credit theft scandal. Executive steps down after viral confrontation with intern. Preston Blackwell out following ethics investigation. The articles detailed the investigation, the board review, the documentation that proves systemic problems with work attribution. Some mentioned my name. Others focused on the broader implications for workplace culture. All of them included a clip from the interview. That moment when Preston's confident smile cracked. When I calmly stated the truth. When 3 million people watched Power Shift in real time. My phone rang constantly. Reporters, podcast hosts, speaking invitations. A literary agent asking if I'd consider writing about the experience. I declined most of it, accepted a few. Did one podcast interview where I talked not just about Preston, but about the systems that protect people like him. About how many interns and junior employees get their work stolen. About why documentation matters. Why speaking up matters, even when you're scared. The episode got 500,000 downloads. Comments flooded in from people sharing similar stories. People who'd stayed silent. People who wished they'd had proof. People who thanked me for saying what they couldn't. I read every comment. Felt the weight of becoming something I never asked to be. A symbol. A voice. An example. It was exhausting. And necessary. And I wasn't done yet. Preston never contacted me directly. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just silence. But Asper's new interim CEO issued a public statement. We deeply value every contributor to our success. From interns to executives. Recognition of work is not just policy. It's principle. We failed to uphold that principle. We're committed to doing better. Corporate language. Carefully crafted. But at least it was something. The statement continued. We're implementing new attribution protocols. Transparent documentation of project contributions, regular audits of work recognition, and a formal process for employees to report concerns without fear of retaliation. I read it, felt nothing. Words on a website wouldn't change what happened, wouldn't give me back the 3 months I spent being invisible, wouldn't erase the late nights or stolen credit or dismissive laughter. But maybe it would help the next intern, the next person who got dismissed. The next creative mind that powerful people tried to exploit. That had to be enough. 2 weeks after Preston's resignation, I received an official letter from Aspera. We would like to offer you a full-time position as brand consultant. Competitive salary. Full recognition of your Phoenix campaign contributions. Public acknowledgement of your strategic work. We understand if you decline, but we hope you'll consider continuing your career with us. I read it once, deleted it. Sent my acceptance letter to Meridian Strategies instead, because I wasn't interested in being Asper's redemption story, their diversity win, their proof that the system could work. I was interested in working somewhere that valued me from the start, not somewhere that learned to value me after I humiliated them on television. 6 weeks after the interview, I started at Meridian. Real office, real title, real salary that meant I could pay more than minimum on my student loans. The team treated me like a colleague, not a symbol, not the intern who went viral, just Sable, someone with good ideas and strategic thinking and value to contribute. It was strange at first, being seen, being heard, having people ask my opinion and actually implement my suggestions, having my name on project documents, being included in decision-making. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to dismiss me, to take my work, to remind me I was lucky to be there. It never happened. Helena, my boss, pulled me aside after my first month. You keep apologizing for taking up space. Stop it. You earned this position. Own it. I tried. Worked on believing my presence mattered, that my ideas had value, that I deserved recognition for my work. It was harder than fighting Preston. Harder than collecting evidence, harder than stepping onto that television stage. Because proving yourself to others is one thing. Believing in yourself is something else entirely. But I was learning, slowly, with help from colleagues who treated me with respect, with validation from work that succeeded, with distance from the place that had tried to make me invisible. 3 months in, Helena assigned me lead strategist on a major campaign. You ready? She asked. I thought about it. About Phoenix. About everything I'd learned. Yes, I said. And meant it. The invitation arrived in January, 8 months after the interview. Invisible no more. A panel discussion on workplace recognition. The event was at a downtown conference center. 3 panelists. Me. A former assistant who'd exposed fraud at a finance company. A junior developer who'd filed a successful discrimination lawsuit. We were the success stories, the people who'd fought back and won. I almost declined. Didn't want to be defined by one moment, one confrontation. Wanted to be known for my current work. for campaigns I was building, for a strategy one was developing. But then I thought about all the messages I'd received. People who'd shared their stories, who'd stayed silent, who needed to know fighting back was possible. So I accepted. The morning of the panel, I pulled out the navy blazer. The one I'd worn my first day at Aspera. The one I'd worn to that final meeting. It fit differently now. Or maybe I wore it differently. With confidence instead of hope. The panel room was packed. Hundreds of people. Young professionals. Interns. People who looked tired. Overlooked. Invisible. I sat on stage. Answered questions about documentation. About timing. About fear. About what happened after. Gave practical advice. But also talked about the cost. The stress. The uncertainty. The way fighting back changes you. Made sure they understood it wasn't easy. Wasn't clean. Wasn't always worth it. But sometimes was necessary. When the panel ended, a line formed. People wanting to talk. To share stories. To ask advice. I stayed until the last person left. Until every question was answered. Until everyone who needed to be heard had been heard. The panel organizers asked me to give closing remarks. I hadn't prepared anything. Stood at the podium looking out at hundreds of faces. Young. Hopeful. Tired. Angry. Overlooked. I thought about what to say. About lessons learned. About justice and recognition and fighting back. But what came out was simpler. I wore this blazer on my first day as an intern. Thought if I dressed professionally enough, worked hard enough, stayed late enough, someone would see me, would value me, would recognize my work. I paused. They didn't. And it wasn't because I didn't work hard enough. It was because the system wasn't designed to see me. It was designed to use me, to take my work, to keep me quiet. Silence in the room.